So, as I was saying, 100,000 people took to the streets of London, a big pro-Palestine march. These figures are from the Metropolitan Police. Others are saying it was higher, the numbers were higher. They held placards, it said Free Palestine. And obviously this is at the same time the Rafah border crossing was open, thankfully, to allow some humanitarian aid, which is absolutely right. Now, people are demanding an end to any kind of military action. But as I said, they were chanting this slogan. I think you're right. I think Jewish people in this country are deeply concerned about where we're going from here. I think Suella Braverman has made it very clear to the police. Now, the police themselves are saying, well, we need to be very careful. In fact, they saw demonstrators standing up. They then one man climbed scaffolding and was protesting with a flag, and he was urged to come down, and they gave him the flag back. Now, the Met actually issued a statement, and people were shouting for jihad. Now, my understanding of jihad is to have annihilation of all Jewish people. Now, the Metropolitan Police tweeted, well, the word jihad has a number of meanings, but we know the public will most commonly associate it with terrorism. We have specialist counter-terrorism officers working here. Someone tweeted, and rightly so, the phrase completely and utterly useless has a number of meanings to depend on what it's in relation to, but when it's used in relation to the Met Police, it's spot on.
Yeah, look, as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's three fundamental meanings to jihad. It's your internal jihad, it's jihad by the pen, and jihad by the sword. I'm pretty confident if you're walking through the streets with slogans such as that, you don't mean that you're going to write a strongly worded letter to the Times, for example. No. I mean, I could be wrong, but I suggest that that's the case. But it is intimidating. It's you know, we're seeing so many instances, and it's not just the Met Police, it's police across the country. I mean, there was one very famous case of a 70 woman in her 70s that took a photograph of a sticker over a trans rights poster. This is not particularly having a go at that sort of demographic or anything, but it's just the consistency. She took a photo saying, we support female-only spaces. The police came to her house and spoke to her as a non-crime, which is interesting, the police are investigating non-crimes, hate crime. And you're thinking, hang on a minute, if just taking a photograph on your mobile phone to show your partner is considered a hate crime, why is shouting jihad in the street or singing a chant that can make people feel intimidated not? And I am fully libertarian, support of freedom of speech.
As am I.
But freedom of speech comes with a certain responsibility, and also the police have a duty with which to protect the vulnerable.
So what's going wrong? What are the police doing wrong here? Because I think many people in this country are waking up this morning thinking, what on earth are the police doing? You've got people essentially inciting violence against a section of the community. Meanwhile, as you say, there are people who are being arrested for transgressions which are very minor. I
think this has got history years back. I think I do have sort of, and bear with me, a degree of sympathy for the average police person, because actually the directions from above must be incredibly confused right
Nebulous.
Now. You can't do anything without that fear. I mean, we saw it the other day of, you know, police officers handing back their guns, those sorts of things, because they're frightened to do anything that could be seen as racist, that could be seen as, you know, attracting negative press. And look, if it was you know, actually in an environment like that where tensions are running high, emotions are running high, this is a desperately sad situation in the Middle East for every part. Actually, they kept it under wraps. We haven't had many sort of reports. If it is, I think, 10 arrests maybe, but, you know, actually not a lot of... So you can say, arguably, that they did a reasonable job in that regard. How far do you want them to go? So I think it's a really difficult line for them to cross.
I do too.
In terms of, if they had arrested people for what they said, then you're then encroaching on freedom of speech, potentially exacerbating the risk of violence to be had. So look, it's a difficult job, but when you put all of the stories you're talking about together, it doesn't paint a good picture.
Well, let me show you something else. This is a clip I saw yesterday. It's gone absolutely viral. Let me show it to you this morning, because this is a tube tannoy, allegedly, on the London Underground, used to lead a pro-Palestine chant by protesters on a train. These protesters were going to the march. They were on a tube train. And then this is what it looks like. Now, many people are saying, well, we need to be very careful about this. TFL saying we need to be careful about this. Was this really over the tannoy? But watch this and then decide for yourself.
Free Palestine! Hope you will have a blessed day today. Look after yourself. and keep all those people in your prayers. Have a good day.
So there you are. That was the clip. I mean, my mouth fell open when I saw that. So the Tannoy voice is heard to chant "Free, free," prompting the protesters to respond, "Palestine." The voice then added, "I hope you have a blessed day today and look after yourselves and keep all of those people in your prayers. Have a good day." What's your view of that? If I was on that tube carriage, if this is right, by the way, I must just tell you what TFL says, because when I watched it, it sounded like it came from the driver, but I must just emphasise, the TFL spokesman said, "We're committed to providing a safe network for everyone. We want to make it clear that London is open to everyone. We are aware of footage circulating on social media that suggests political comments may have been made by one of our tube drivers. We are working to scrutinise the footage and ensure the circumstances are urgently investigated." So you're sitting on a tube, you have, if this is right, a tube driver essentially supporting one side, where you have a group of people supporting the Palestinian cause. If you're Jewish on that tube, or indeed anyone else caught up in that, I would be deeply concerned.
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, that's the second time I've watched it, and actually the second time I'm thinking, actually, that could be someone with a loudspeaker.
Maybe.
Only for the fact, how many times have you been on the tube and not understood a word that the Tannoy announcer has
Well,
made,
that's very
right?
true, that's very
so
true.
I think that, look, be that as it may, and I think that's an investigation for TFL, and I think it should be a fairly open and closed if they do find someone to have been doing that, because I think it breaches, you know, what is correct of what the driver should be doing. Be that as it may, if you are on that tube anyway, and you are Jewish, or you are someone, let's say, wearing an Israeli flag or anything going on to it's a deeply intimidating place to be.
It is, because you can't escape.
No.
That's the other thing. And I've been on a tube where I've been threatened by a group of youths, for example, and you do feel very vulnerable.
I would actually say, it's not, you don't necessarily... I mean, I was thinking, if I was sat there and sort of people who, as I said, the emotions are running very high. These people are off to protest something that, you know, potentially I don't necessarily agree with. I mean, I agree with your right to protest, go ahead. But, I mean, I think it's quite an intimidating atmosphere. So for them to say, you know, we try and make an inclusive environment on the tube, that's not an inclusive environment. So the TFL have to look that actually if there are going to be big protests in London, what's the job of the tube network? It's going to be very, very difficult for them to say, sorry, you're not allowed on. Maybe if you have a political slogan or a political flag. I mean, I don't... in football matches at the weekend, they were told, do not bring flags to the football games. So...
But how would you police it? I mean, it's just a really interesting question. I mean, I think it goes back to...
Clearly, we wouldn't. We've already discussed the police wouldn't do anything, so it's fine.
Well, you're right. They wouldn't do anything. And that's the question I want to ask you this morning. And this is based on lots of things that people have been messaging me about, which is people have said to me, I'm very worried about my own safety and security in this country. I don't like what is going on in this country. Let me know, how concerned are you for your own safety and the safety of this country?